Hello, everybody. This is Sally Jerney from Sally Jerney Quilts. This is my third podcast, and it's just exciting to be back in this space. It's a snow day here in Madison, so we have the unusual goodie of having Jackie and Jamie both home with me. That's exciting.
Who are Jackie and Jamie?
My daughters.
Oh, okay.
My daughters are home, and as we always laugh, my grandsons, who you raised to do all the hard work and things, are at their father's today, so we're not getting any snow shovelers. But
Oh, but they'll be back tonight.
they'll be back tonight, and
We'll
they can
save
do
it for them.
Yes. But anyway, snow day. This is a beautiful snow day because it's been beautiful snow and it's warm and it's just lovely. So decided to do podcast number 3. Anyway, I have to say, an amazingly, oh wow, thank you, Espace Tricot, Melissa and Lisa. That was just awesome of you when you mentioned me in your podcast, and it just felt so good. I felt so good. I was just sitting there making dinner for a Friday night, and I usually don't get around to watching knitting podcasts, but I just thought, oh, I see that you're on, so I'm just going to watch you. So I was there just chopping onions and carrots and all that, and then suddenly you did that warm, lovely, welcoming shout out, I guess is what you call it in the modern lingo, right, Jackie? But anyway, so it just filled me. I couldn't, so then I'm texting Jackie and all that. But what happened was, it was just surprising, is that little shout out of yours, suddenly my podcasts were getting so many more viewers, and it was just, more subscribers, and and I'm just thrilled because, as I said, and it really is true, this podcasting is for my family, for my grandsons, and for anybody that's interested in quilts, and I love sharing it. And the response from people has been so heartwarming. I've loved it. I'm just, I've always said that I'm kind of an introvert quilter, but I would love to open my studio and have that 1 or 2 students in here at a time. I don't see myself off doing classes but I would like to be able to pass it along. So I had a woman respond to me saying that I inspired her, and she wonders if I would do a quilt tutorial about how I do my process. And I'm going to add that, little bits of how-tos in podcasts. I'm hoping that this will continue on for some time. So I will be putting in how-tos, and I'll do some of that today. So thank you. It wouldn't be, when I look back over my quilting history, which I've told you goes back to about 1976. I just followed a log cabin quilt pattern in Women's Circle or Family Circle magazine, just how to. And I remember carefully measuring out the logs and doing the color placement the way they told me to do it, and struggling to make sure that I had 1/4-inch seams and that they all were fine. And I somehow managed as a young mother to get a couple of pillows made out of a log cabin design, and then that kind of got, in the 70s I was raising young girls, and so I didn't do a lot of that kind of stuff. Then I went back to school. But I remember in the 80s, I saw an advertisement in my neighborhood that a woman named Doreen Speckman was going to offer her first quilting class. And so I decided with my mother-in-law, Rosie, to take Doreen's first class. And it was a gift. It was an absolutely incredible gift. She opened up her house. We had the class in her kitchen and her dining room on her table, with the debris and the mess of her life all around. But
And she lived just like 8 blocks away.
She did. It was astounding. It was such a gift because it was her first time of doing it, so she was all excited about it. And Doreen Speckman became a quilt phenomena in her lifetime. Her life ended much too short. She died in 1999, I believe, at about 48, 49, doing what she loved best. She was teaching, she ran courses and did cruises, and she was in Ireland doing workshops on quilting, and she died leading line dancing.
Oh.
Had a heart attack, and and Doreen was like larger than life, just an absolutely incredible woman, and I had the honor and the privilege of learning quilting from her. And
how many classes did you take with her?
I took probably 3, 4. Mm-hmm. I did it for just everything she did for a while, and it was just so inspiring because she taught quilting not in a punitive way or a everything has to be precise way. It was I have a passion for putting fabric together and making these quilts, and I don't know what's going to happen with these quilts, but I'm going to make as many and as wild and crazy and vibrant as I possibly can. And she did. I can't even imagine what her pile of quilts would be. Mm-hmm. And she made, all of them were hand quilted, because that's what you did back in this would have been in the early 80s probably when I was taking these classes, maybe later 80s. But I remember her taking, like she was showing us the first quilt she ever made. And the first quilt she made was for her daughter, Megan. Mm. And she pulls it off. And, it's just funny. You have, being a mother myself, she pulls it off the bed, from her upstairs bedroom, brings it down, and it's a sampler quilt. Big blocks about this big of all different kinds of traditional patterns. And I remember a sunbonnet Sue in there, and she just kind of sniffs it and goes, okay, I just never know when I'm pulling something off Megan's bed, whether they'll, but that's who she was. Okay, it's like she was so down to earth. Mm-hmm. So the other lesson that I got, other than the color and the vibrancy of her, was that don't sweat the small stuff. This is about having fun. This is about, and she did an incredible, her quilting was all about piecing very, it was called peaky and spike. It was the traditional kind of quilts that had points, and you had to match the points up, and so it isn't that she wasn't doing very difficult work, but she would lay it up, and she had a very broad chest. She was like me, except very tall. Mm-hmm. And so her chest was her, she would take
design
something.
Board.
It was her design board, and she would take it, and I can remember saying, like, as long as, I look at it, as long as I've got 3 corners and three matches in here, I'm not going to take anything out if that 4th one doesn't quite, match. What am I going to do? Do I want to spend my time taking things out? And this was from a woman who did like incredible, beautiful work. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so that's what I took from it, is like and I made, in those early years, it was just one traditional quilt after another, and these, just vibrant colors. And I remember making a quilt for my office. I don't think I even have that quilt anymore, but I brought it to her, showed it like this, and she said, wow, I would be proud to call that mine. Mm-hmm. And it was like, whoa, I really, so this is Doreen. I have
show them.
This is
too fast.
One of her books that I've kept, because she did these, these cruises where quilt cruises. I never did that with her, but she would go in the Caribbean and sew her, in Alaska, and so her quilts were influenced by the rich colors of the Caribbean and the rich the colors of Alaska, and I kind of lost touch with her when she was in this period, because she was always gone, and it was years after I had my classes with her. But fortunately, this quilt is marked 1994. In 1994, remember she died 5 years later, I saw that she was doing a workshop on color, or on, piecing. It was about, it was always about these particular kinds of quilts. And so I thought, I'm just going to go take that, because it's not what I'm way, it wasn't like I was way beyond that, but I'd gone in my own direction, and it was different than traditional quilts. And so, I'd learned what I needed to learn from her. But I went back and I took this class, and I made this quilt. I don't know if we can.
This is my job.
Yes, it doesn't matter what.
Okay.
But anyway, that's a traditional Doreen Speckman quilt.
I was gonna say I saw pictures of this
Yeah.
in the book.
In the book, yes, that's exact. So I don't make quilts following patterns anymore.
But this was a pattern.
But that was a pattern. I followed it. I tried to do some, I don't make quilts where there's so few colors, so it just isn't me anymore. But I had a beautiful time. You can show them the back. I don't know if that shows. I made spider web quilting, and I did have fun with the quilting on this.
Oh, there's the spider.
The spider web is, there's
And you
several of them.
hand quilt.
Yeah, a hand quilt. So I'm glad I've hung on to it, and I found it the other day and thought I need to add my tribute to her. And I think there's a picture of her.
Well, here's
That's
sort of,
that kind of quilt.
and it's recipes, which is not how you.
No,
Oh, here she is.
there she is.
Mm-hmm.
And bless her heart, I love her dearly, and
And you
I-
have culled so many books. I'm shocked that you
I
even
kept
still
that
have
because
them.
of her.
Right.
It's not my thing anymore, but
Right.
I kept it. So anyway, that was how I learned to quilt.
And what I'm sorry, just to clarify, I mean, this is what I mean by
Oh, yeah.
recipes. Like this is not what you do anymore.
No, it isn't. Oh my God, I'd go crazy. So I have quilt, when they talk about when you go from how do you, what's the transition quilts, and I can think in my mind of some of these transition quilts where they're blocks, and then there's all kinds of free form quilting around it and stuff like that. But anyway,
So how do you? I mean, you have this stack of quilts in front of you, and is this? I mean, because you don't. It's not like you're going to show the whole progression from.
No, I can't right
Yeah,
now. I mean,
'cause
it's kind of like I have
it's
so
like
many
a
of those.
20-year
And I have
history.
to laugh because this one quilt, and be prepared for this with your own work. I made this quilt that I thought was absolutely, at the time, it was, a giant queen size quilt. And it was in oranges and browns, and it was so 80s, and, just absolutely the height. And I gave that to my brother,
Mhm.
and this is my brother who died in, too young, 37. But anyway, I had finished this quilt and got it to them before he died. Yeah, because he died in 1980, so it would have been. Anyway, so that quilt is now folded up and is on a chair as a dog bed in my sister-in-law's house. And I love that. I absolutely love that, because she's like, oh, I have your quilt here. And she has no idea that most quilters, I mean, it's all meticulously hand quilted, all that stuff, but the colors are, so it happens. We can't help it. We all thought, avocado green and that gold, harvest gold, were awesome in the 70s. So
Well, we still like those.
yeah, but we don't like it in the same way. It's not. So anyway, what I want to do with the podcast now is what I'm doing today's podcast is kind of doing a lot of the familiar quilts that we have around our house. Or should I do our birthday boy first?
Sure, why not?
Let's do our birthday boy, because I'm looking at those.
Okay.
Oh, my dear darling grandson, Aaron, turned 18 on Saturday. And I don't know where those years went. He's just he's the love of my life. I just love that boy. Well, I have 2 grandsons, and he's the oldest. And so he got, when he was...
The prince is
the
what
prince
we
is
call
what we called him. And Jackie tasked me with the job of making baby quilts while she was
Yes.
pregnant. And I think I was supposed to make
6.
Six.
Why? I don't even know.
I don't know why, but I got 4 done. It seems to me there was one other one, but I can't figure out. But I have 4 done. Let's
Yeah.
give me credit
Yeah.
for that. So we decided, since he just turned 18, that we'd bring out his baby quilts and show you his baby quilt. So this was the first one. And this is traditional, like, what does one make for a baby but yellow, because you don't know what they are
that's
yet.
Right.
It has kind of a little, because we kind of...
the feel of this
I love
mother.
that quilt.
Oh.
Anyway, it's a beautiful, that I love making things simple like that, and that was just meant to be an absolutely used over and over baby quilt. It was on his crib, and oh yeah, we have pictures of that with him. So,
and it's just simple squares.
right,
Are they
simple
on
squares
the-
on the diagonal. Yep.
Yeah.
Just doing and so that was fun. And of course, the next grandson has other quilts, but he inherited these baby quilts, so I don't think we had time to make baby quilts as it is with the second one. I live with my grandchildren, in case and have since they were born.
Okay.
But this is a collaboration. The second one is the Jackie and Sally quilt, because I don't know if you noticed, but she and I don't always agree 100% on how things ought to be done.
This is my side.
And Jackie she gave me a stack of fabrics and said, how about if we make it like this? So, this was the feminine one. This is the beautiful feminine side of this quilt.
Oh.
Well, I wanted to make a more colorful, vibrant, this is a very traditional quilt pattern. I think it's Jacob's Ladder. I've kind of forgotten some of these pattern names. But anyway, so decided, hey, I'm going to make a two-sided quilt. And so that's what this is.
Yes. Well,
and it's
this
just
was kind of the first time you did that.
Yes, it is. I know, and I just love it because it's, she's happy, I'm happy, and it's just, and that's all, Kay Fawcett fabrics, things like that. I mean, it's just very fun.
Okay.
And then this one had more to do with his father's love of boating and woodworking. And he gave me a picture of the traditional, what did they call that, Tanbark Sails. And I'm not an appliquer and I don't do much applique other than rough edge, but for this assignment, I tried to use the traditional 4-patch, where you take 4 of the same thing, spread it, and it's a very nautical kind of, I don't even know if you can, maybe if we go back further.
What?
And it's got it's very densely quilted. I can see Heron, who has turned into quite that was hung for a long time in his room. But I could see our nautical, fish-loving, water-loving boy having that sometime in his house.
Hot air balloons.
Balloons, yes.
Yep.
And the next one was the Pram. Babies were supposed to have, this I didn't know when I had my girls, but in this age it was like, they really like black and white, so we had to make a black and white quilt. And that's another one, Birds of a Feather, something like that. I don't remember the pattern. But these are very traditional kind of geese quilts with a beautiful Liberty of London fabric on the back.
Yeah.
So he had that. He had wasn't his...
and you must have put in the pops of purple, because I can't imagine I would say, put in pops of purple.
I do kind of,
She gets to have some fun.
Yeah. And that was, it's so funny, because that was a very difficult quilt to make because it's matching corners. That's
more corners.
It is. It's a lot more triangle corners. It's like when you're making star quilts and that sort of thing. So this is kind of to show you that I do.
Where she came.
Yeah, I know how to match corners and I know how to follow patterns and, that kind of stuff. But I never really followed a such and such quilt. It was more like, the way I learned is, you get a book of, say, I think Jenny Beyer had one, you get a book of 400 traditional quilt patterns. And so then when I'd make a quilt, I'd go through those things and go, oh, I want to make this and this and this and this. But then onward from here.
Yes, so what's your plan? Just lay out where we're going. You have this pile right here.
What I'm doing is I'm showing you some of the quilts that we keep in the house. These are some of my treasures, some of my favorites.
Okay.
And they have special story to me. And then, that's my plan, is I'll show you this. I have a large quilt that I just want to show you that my youngest grandson is loved. He has.
Let's show that he's loved right now.
He's loved right now.
Let's get his love established.
Yes, because I made him
he is a giant.
He has a large quilt.
And I
that
will
is
unfold it.
Yes.
Okay. This one's heavy.
Yes, it's heavy. It's going to be something that, right now it's on my bed, which is crazy, but, I need an extra quilt and he doesn't. So I kind of wrap it up. It has a very modern back of just But yeah, so you can see that was made, quilted in Door County. It's been,
Nobody
you know,
can feel them on it.
I know.
guess that's the
Quilts-
thing with
quilts have to be felt in
this
person.
feels so good.
Well, and the fabrics don't show up as well
No.
online as they do.
No.
There's, you know, you know, anybody that's watching this is going to know quilts. They're going to go look at quilts. They're going to make quilts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever. There's just nothing like the experience of holding it.
Mm-hmm. And all of those stitches.
Yes, there's, you know, it's just, when I look sometimes, there's so many stitches in all these quilts. But it does. It makes it a softer feel to it. This one's been washed a couple times.
Okay.
And Joe will get this quilt when he's a little bit older. Right now, if you saw his bed, you'd know why he doesn't have it on his bed. Not that I'm trying to keep it precious, but no.
Well, it's no different. I used to knit for them, and they don't want to be knit for right now.
But they will appreciate it when the time comes. So anyway, so there goes Joe. So this next batch of quilts I'm going to show you are what happens when I just play.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, and so they end up being like
Okay,
this
here.
one
Mm-hmm.
is called A Little Blue. And what that is, if you can show them the back of that too.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a little study in little boys' mended knees. It's the kind of thing I wrote a little.
Oh, right.
My favorite fabrics are often a scrap of jeans, a stray ribbon, clothing repurposed. They tell stories
What's
to
this
me
shirt?
as intimate as a love letter. To you, a universal truth. We all love our babies and their precious clothing that's outgrown so fast your head spins.
Mm.
My quilts are a way of holding these for just a little longer.
Oh, yes.
That's A Little Blue.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
Yes, it is. So,
Oh.
and this quilt, and I don't know, when it's out of its place where it's supposed to be, which is right the first thing I look at when I wake up in the morning, and I have the wall, I think it's called Heron Blue. It's just a beautiful, no, it's oyster shell. That's
Mm-hmm.
and it just is the most calm, serene quilt that, you know, it has a door in it. It has mystery. It just came about where when it got put together, it has something that's very soothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my personal favorite quilt that I have.
Is this
in my
the
room.
door?
Yes, it's a door. You just but you look at it when you wake up and it's all
Right.
misty and it has a
Right.
real ephemeral kind of like where
Mhm.
you know you go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that quilt and I
Mhm.
love where it's at. It's just on its own little wall. And this is another one that comes from my bedroom. And I'm using a lot of these calm colors because it's my place of, you know, other than it looks like chaos right now, but well, you know, getting ready for here. It's kind of chaotic, but when everything is put together, it's these grays and yellows and whites and creams, and it's a very
I'm
serene.
going to bring it forward, of course.
And what this kind of quilt is
Oh,
the process of putting fabric together without any particular purpose other than to enjoy what happens when it goes together.
yeah, like I just showed them this.
Yeah.
I love
I mean, I don't start out to make this quilt, and I've tried to explain that to people many times. It's not like I have this picture in my mind. This is like I am drawing, or I am painting, or I think my quilts come more from a mood. And when I'm putting the fabric together, I'm constantly talking to myself. Like, well, what if I tried this? And maybe I'll try, I love this little piece. There's a piece of Liberty of London fabric on there. I think it's called
This?
Prairie.
Right here?
Yeah, and Liberty of London, if you don't get it, you can't get it again. Let's just put it that way. They do it in seasons. And I had like a half yard of these beautiful large scale flowers. And so what I like to see is what happens when you take a beautiful fabric and you cut it in a way that you don't expect. Like, you're not expecting people to cut a piece of
Right.
fabric where the flower isn't featured.
Right.
Because that's what this fabric is about. It's like big, beautiful prairie flowers.
Mm-hmm.
But by using it in this chopped up way, it becomes something different. It's like it's a secret, or like a little, what is that all about? There's mystery in quilts when they don't feature what you think they should feature. I don't know how to explain
Mhm.
it, but
Well, that's life
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Like your process. What I love is you do not create with the end in mind. You
No.
actually kind of go into a trance and just engage with the fabric, and keep engaging until you
And
arrive at.
it's why I have such a hard time with, and I love that people ask me, can you do a quilting tutorial? This is your quilting tutorial, because I don't know how to, other than to say, keep doing what Doreen taught me to do, which was to keep the passion in it. Just whatever it is you want to do, it's important to say, I'm good enough. I can do this. I don't need, I'm an artist. Name yourself. Just give yourself credit for the ability to do it. Don't hesitate. Just jump in. Take a risk. It's only fabric. Just put it together and see what happens, without anything at the end. I mean, and you'll be surprised what happens when you let go of the final product. You don't have to worry about it.
Well, and you've always been very joyful, and so that would be the other. I mean, when you say you can't, I mean, you taught me how to quilt, and I just remember it was all about enjoying the color in your hands. And the other thing, you were very generous and unprecious about the fabric. Like, in a way, maybe I wouldn't have been. Like, I would be like, oh, I'm saving this for just,
Yes.
But if anybody came over and wanted, you would give them some.
Because there's usually so much of it, you only need a little bit. But coming about how precious the fabric is, this quilt is, this is Riverstones 3 is the name of it. And it is the third in a process. It started out, I have to tell you the quick story, I don't have the written part of it, but it started out with a little boy who turned 18 this weekend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And his grandmother. We went out in our backyard, and we have a section of our yard where we have Mississippi River stones, gravel. And he and I sat there, I think he was probably about 5. He and I sat there culling through the stones, and we put them in water, and we brought them up to the sewing room.
All the granite.
And we were just like, and we started going, I said, this looks like fabric here, and let's just start cutting up fabric. So we brought out fabric, started just cutting and cutting and cutting all this fabric, and we're making a quilt on there. Well, and it was just so sweet, because he got at my feet. This is just this little bugger. He goes down to where he's pressing the foot pedal on the sewing machine while I'm sewing, so that we're sewing together. And we did just lots and lots and lots of pieces of strips, and it's not this particular quilt, but it was all that fabric that was inspired by the Mississippi River stones, wet.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget him, just the joy he was having about pushing my foot pedal while I was sewing. It made it a little bit tougher to keep tension going.
Yeah.
But what happened was I made tons of fabric. I put a big quilt up on the design wall that was going to be from this. And this is one of the, when I started doing this thing of making these large quilts and then recognizing I didn't want that. And at that time I was commissioned by my older daughter, Jamie, to make a couple of quilts for Barb and Bonnie from Courage to Teach. Their cohort wanted to give them a gift, and so they asked me if I'd make quilts. So I made Riverstones 1 and Riverstones 2 out of that fabric that Heron and I made. I gave them the story because they're teachers, and story and poetry and quilts, and it's just a beautiful. So this third quilt is the one that I kept for me, and it's Riverstones 3, and it's always been in my sewing room, and it's just a delight on that memory of that little boy. So this is fun. I feel like
I know. There's four more,
and then we have a couple of things. Okay. This is one that I call Family Matters.
Okay.
And
I'm going to close up while you're talking.
Okay. This is a quilt that just started out as play with little scraps of denim. There's a red plaid in there that was Jackie's grandfather's shirt, and he had passed on at that time. There is
discarded shirts.
Uncle's shirt in there, Stephen's shirt, the boys, Jackie's clothes, Jamie's clothes, my clothes, the boys' clothes. It's just so it's called Family Matters because it is filled with little mending. There's a knee patch with a zigzag through it. There's just, bringing lots of little pieces of family together. And it's like one of my favorites. It goes in our living room. It just, yeah. So that's that one. It's got an interesting backing too. If you want to it's just kind of like this vibrant little bike pattern. Then they had, I don't know who. Yes. Anyway, so there's that one. Living room quilt. I'm not bringing all the living room quilts up, but at least this is
not showing the big ones right now.
Yeah. Okay. So now this quilt is called My Father's Dragon, and there's something about getting to the age I am. I'm deciding that I have to get going on. If I'm going to do something, I need to do it. I mean, I'm not feeling like I'm going to, pass on.
But your father died when he was...
He died when he was 46, I believe. So I was 13.
My father died when he was...
62.
And you are...
70. I'm going to be 70. So yes. So there's a certain mortality warms. And this quilt, I don't know, after my mother died, she had given me my father's silk bathrobe. I didn't know it was his at the time, but she said, no, this was your dad's. He had this in Okinawa. And she just had it in a trunk in the basement. And I wanted to do something to honor those incredibly gorgeous dragons, because dragons in the feng shui are a very powerful animal, protection and family. So there they are. They're in this quilt now. I just did that last year. I love it. It's very simple. It doesn't have a lot of fabric in it, but it just takes those dragons and keeps them in a way that we can, I make quilts. I don't keep silk bathrobes. So, that's what it...
Did you want to, you have these absolutely enormous buttons.
Oh yeah, I love to put buttons on things when they call for it, and that one called for a little color dash down in there, and that's what I use buttons for. So that one, I was very happy to get that quilt made, because it's the kind of thing that the robe could have sat there for years again and not get it done. So I feel like that was on my to-do list, and I did it, so that was a good thing. So last time we talked about the drop cloth quilts, and I didn't have this one up here. This was 2 summers ago when I used I just put that thing up there because it's easier for you to hold it with I used a drop cloth that we'd had around here for years. And when I was painting the boys' room and couldn't be quilting, I was looking at my feet, and I've always gotten teased about being a painter that gets more on me than I get on the walls, and I do on the floor too. So I just kept, while I was painting their room, which took me days, I kept seeing these vivid images in the floor that, just were calling to me, and I just kind of went like, oh my goodness, that is fabric that I want to use. So I've got many pieces of that in quilts, and this particular one really features the quilt with the circles in it, and just things of paint splattered here and there, and that's inspired by our trips to Door County.
This is from your father, isn't it?
No, not that
No?
particular one. That's those beautiful metallic linens.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
So that's what that is. And this is like a funny little quilt. I've got to show this because this is the same era as the baby quilts a little bit.
Oh.
And this is made, I don't know if we can, it's too big. It's made from my nieces, Madison and Jerney. Michelle, my niece, and her daughters, they lived in Hawaii for several years. They were stationed there. And the girls had all kinds of these Hawaiian shirts. And after they outgrew them, and they'd given some to the boys, all the cousins had those little Hawaiian shirts. So Michelle gave those to me, and I wanted to do something to, put them in a quilt so that they, were kept. Now the other thing that's on there that is just like a little treasure is Heron, when he was a baby, his little flannel shirt. So I have his flannel shirt and the buttons down on it, and it just kind of holds. There's a lot of...
Well, this is a shirt I made too. Right
yes,
here.
a lot of special fabric in that quilt. It's a little bit funkier colors than what we normally do, or what I normally do, but it was there. It's been made, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure. It doesn't hang anywhere. It's just there. Who knows what's going to happen with that quilt, but I love it. In the pocket, I have put a little, there's a one wish token and a little angel. When
oh, that?
Yes,
is
those
in
are
here?
Yeah, the
Okay.
little angel is in there.
Okay.
So I just, well, you should have, little boys should have things in their pockets besides worms and that sort of stuff. But it has the little angel.
Yeah. So.
That was after your dad died that we
Yeah.
got all those little angels from Teresa.
Oh, I didn't even know those were in there.
Yeah. So there they are. So that's,
Yeah.
and that has a lot of meaning to me. So that quilt is there. So in the, that's the quilts from history for right now. And there's other things that I want to share with you. I think you see behind me, and I don't know whether it's going to be coming. I know Jackie used this in her podcast, Cady Jax Knits.
Oh, look at you knowing the name
I
of
got it. So be sure and watch that.
The lighting was better.
The lighting was better that day because she had it wafting. It's on silk organza, which was Jackie's idea. I had wanted to take these little blocks from Grandma Jerney's quilt and make sure that they were put together on something. But I also didn't want to lose the backs of these. And we'll show you this at another time. If you don't go,
we can show it at the very end.
We'll take it down. But I love it. I absolutely adore this. I'm still processing and working on Grandma Johnson's quilts. I'll show you.
But you can see the very Andy Warhol.
Oh yeah, it is. It's just kind of,
and
it's 36 squares. And it was funny because I was making those thinking that those were going to be the things I would use to sell at the craft, at that Megan's holiday fair would be, I'll make some small things and that'll work just great for selling. But then what happened is when I put them all up on the wall,
like that,
it was, they couldn't be separated. And it was just like, wow, I can't.
That's the process.
And that's the process. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't done that. And it's an accidental, when they went up there, that's exactly, it wasn't like, I didn't ponder over like, how is this going to go up on the wall? It was just each time I'd finish one, I would plunk it up in the wall.
She has a wall behind me where I'm sitting that's just felt.
Yeah.
The whole wall is
right.
felt.
And so
she can pin into it. And
So that's where those were. And so then it was kind of like, and then I started grumping to Jamie and saying, nobody's going to want these. And, that kind of thing, like trying to rationalize that why should I take these down and take them to the sale? Nobody's going to want these. And then she just looked at me and she said, Mom, I think what you're saying is you don't want to sell them. It was so sweet because every single one of those, I touch them all the time. They have Grandma Johnson's stitches in them. And it's just like we have such a magic connection over time now. I don't know what's going to happen in the beyond, or, I don't know. It's a mystery to me. But all I know is that this woman in time is coming back and working through me right now. And it's just, it's like, it is incredible. So I'm channeling her, and, so I'm enjoying that. And I'm still working on the process. And that's what I'm going to pull out over here is, I had showed you already, these are the white on white quilts that I'm working on.
Which are perfect for today.
Yeah, which are perfect for today. They just go on. But see, then I decided I'm going to continue. I don't know if I'm going to go much more than this, but since I've podcasted, I made this one. This is the 5th one? Yeah. And what's in the center of that is a little scrap of Grandma Johnson's quilt, that little blue and the white. Yeah. And there's other pieces of the muslin-y part of it in there too, than just the plain. There was a lot of plain, I don't know if it was the flour sacks or what, but there's a lot of plain muslin that I had to work with. So anyway, so that one,
wedding dress.
Yeah, that one shows that. And so then I put together a couple more, and that one is inspired by her. I reached into a bundle of whites, like I have these all in these tubs. I reached into the tub of white, looking for something to go with a different quilt, and this little precious scrap of Grandma Johnson's quilt came out in my hand. It had no business being in there. That's what I mean, like she's working with me, because it didn't have any logical purpose to be in that box. That was just plain white muslin scraps and that kind of stuff. And there was, I just have tiny little bits of this left. So to find this little rectangle of pinks with her stitch, it's got.
And how does that, that's exciting for you, but how does that translate for people who are watching? What do you think is...
I think what it says is just open your eyes around you, and whatever it is that brings you that kind of connection, or that feeling of purpose in your life, or that feeling of connection to your past, or where you're going from here, be open and aware, and look, when you're looking, and it'll find you if you just let it. And so that's what I mean by Grandma Johnson. There's so much more connected to making her quilts. They're accidental. They're like serendipity.
Do you saying you feel expanded by this connection?
I do, because it took me, like I knew my grandmother. My grandmother was like a dynamo woman that made all the wedding dresses for her daughter's wedding, and did, like I was thinking about her in terms of quilts. She told me she didn't make quilts, and they had a woolen mill, and they'd take the scraps from the woolen factory, and they'd make these heavy duty quilts to go on beds to keep warm, because they didn't have the kind of heat we have now, and they lived in northern Wisconsin, and I'll tell you, it was cold. So she had practical things, but she was an incredible artist. So what I'm trying to get at is I knew her, but beyond that, and so, but Grandma Johnson just goes like...
Grandma Johnson, is that Grandma's mother?
No, it's that Grandma's grandmother.
Oh, okay. So
it takes it even, and it's just, that's not even very far, but it just goes, hey, we go beyond, we go way back, we are stardust. And it sounds crazy, but we are connected. It's the mystery. And so the mystery is what I'm working with her.
And I can't help saying, like, as I'm aging, and the people in your family that you love that have died, and you start to be on that end of your life, of course, you want to be connected because you don't want life to be linear. You want it to be a circle.
Right. No, I know, and it's just
that
kind of
makes sense. But
well, no,
you know
but
what I mean.
It is. It's like, quilting is a way of expressing that for me. It's. But anyway, I have, and then I have this one more that I'm doing here, which is just another one of the white on whites.
And you said this was your mother's sheet.
Just from the 50s, yeah. So it's a way of keeping hold in, you know, like I'm looking at these quilts as maybe going together in some way. You know, they're.
But I like how it's not like, oh, this is the most beautiful fabric ever. It's not precious.
No, it isn't.
It's not precious in that way, in like this aesthetic, prissy way that I can sometimes be. Yes. It's like, no, this is my mother's sheet. Here it is.
I know, and I love that she hung on to that one sheet, and I go like, is there a story to that? Is there more to this sheet? You know, my mother and her love, you know, my father, and you know, did this, like this, was this their wedding sheet? Was this, you know, who knows? Why did she keep that one? So, you know, that's the kind of thing. There's story in fabric. So in podcasting, I don't know how long we've gone. I was
45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a,
yeah, because I was going to do more about
somebody's doing some hand quilting.
Right. I was going to do more about the process, but we'll do that next time because I have a whole bunch of how-tos that I want to share with you.
Yeah.
The one thing I want just is to follow the joy in it and not, like Doreen said across her, you know, if you get 3 corners good, then don't sweat the 4th one. You know, it's your eye is going to make it perfect. So
yeah. And you know, you have that memory from Doreen, and but it's funny because you have wisdom now too. Yeah. I mean, you know, coming into the age where you have, and I mean, I know it's horrible to be asked straight on what is yours, but when you think about your quilting, at least right now, what's the message you're getting from it?
Well, the message that I'm getting from it is to, I guess, honor it and to do it, you know, make time for it and, you know, claim it for what it is. I mean, it's my way of creating something beautiful in the world, you know, and it's my way of sharing the gift that I was given, which is, you know, there's a gift, even though I say this is accident, there's a gift in the fact that this all went together so simply and so well. There's, you know, they talk about, you know, what is it, the Gladwell, is it the 10,000 hours? I mean, when I look around and I go, I've persisted through I don't know how many stitches, and I can remember early on having this big discussion, like back in the 70s and the early 80s, it was like, how many stitches per inch? And oh
I remember
God,
that.
what a downer that can be, because then you're never good enough.
Right.
So I never think about how many stitches per inch now. I just think about, oh my God, they're so glorious to, you know, I get in the zen of like, it just feels good.
Yeah.
I'm going to, you know, like when I was doing this, it was just like I'm going to doodle these little flowers, you know, that's what that is. So
yes, it's collaborating.
Yes.
Collaborating with the life force. That's what I would say you do. And since you are also a knitter, you got to show them that.
All right. I finished my shawl that I'm wearing the Christmas colors to wear with this.
But yeah, but you can still show.
Yes.
There it is. And it's cozy.
And I love it. And Jackie took a wonderful, loving picture of me that I felt so good about. And anyway, I love this. It was fun with the knitting group. I feel like if I can sit and knit a little bit too, though
she prefers to
prefer
stitching. But look at that.
But it just feels wonderful. And she encouraged me to, it took a lot of persistence and perseverance to get this done because I had a lot of trouble with it. But I love it. And she encouraged me to block.
Oh.
And don't not block things because you think you can get by with it. You do block, and it's so much fun.
There we go. So we go from the high wisdom to and block your knits.
Block your
Well, there we go. So we can end on like
thank
some
you
basic
so much,
advice.
and I love it. And keep watching, and I thank you for your support.
Yes, and you can like, and you can subscribe, and you can follow Sally on Instagram too. What is it?
Sally Jerney Quilts.
Okay.
I keep it simple. Sally Jerney Quilts in both places.
Jerney.
Right. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Bye.